Hello everyone and welcome to the video tutorial of Autodesk Maya 2015. This is the very first video tutorial that we have, and it will go over the user interface. Basically what you see in this entire screen here. Now the first thing you probably are pointed out to is this big blue box area. This is what we call our work area. Anything you create or animate or anything that you do in the 3D virtual world will be seen in this box. These two black lines that intersect along with all these other gray lines that create a grid is exactly what it's called. It is a grid. This kind of gives you an idea that you can look at the top of your objects, the bottom, underneath, left side, right side, moving to the left and right, up and down. I mean, there's virtually anything you can do here that you can navigate through in this 3D virtual world. So again, this is your work area, what you'll be focusing on most of the time. Now let's go to the very top here. Here, File, Edit, Modify. This is our main menu bar. All right, these will allow you access to anything you want to go into in Maya. Now, as I said before, Maya is a very powerful program. So there's over 100 different menus you can see here. In fact, you got a menu here that goes to a sub-menu, that goes to another sub-menu. It can just go on and on and on. So if we were going to learn everything in here, this would be like a 6-year course. So we're going to just learn the basic fundamentals. So don't get so overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff we got to learn. I'm not going to learn everything. Now the next line here, where all these pictures are, this is your status line. Okay, now all of these buttons you can see here, and all these buttons you can see here, and here, and here, everything here could all be found in the main menu bar. But these are what you can call like shortcuts. You know how you go to your desktop, your computer, and you got a shortcut instead of going from one menu to another to find a certain program? This is the same way. And whenever you get confused by what button is what, all you got to do is hover your mouse over it. After a few seconds or two, you'll see it says Select Surface Objects. And if I hover over this one, then one more second, Select Deformation Objects. And the next one is Select Dynamic Objects. So in case you're wondering what each button does, just hover over it and it'll tell you what it is. Okay? Sometimes it even gives you what action it does. It locks component selection mode, preventing switch to object selection mode. That might not make sense to you right now, but by the time you've already been in this program for a few months, it will. Okay, so the next line here is called your shelf. This is your shelf. And of course, you have many different kinds of shelf. You get your general shelf, curve shelf, surface shelf, polygon shelf, deform, blah, blah, blah. 9 times out of 10, or I should say 90% of the time, we're going to be working on the polygon shelf. So just make sure that, you're just going to be focusing on this. All this other stuff is really cool, but way advanced. Right now, it's just going to be the polygons, because that's where the most fun is at anyways. So next is your viewport icons. Again, that's viewport icons. And this basically will manipulate how you see things here. Like if you want to see things transparent, you can use the transparent one here, or X-ray they like to call it. If you want to see things from a different camera, you got a different camera here. We'll get all into that later on as we go through the course here. Next is another big menu that you probably use a lot, at least in the beginning. This is your toolbox, okay? These are all your main tools you'll be using. And then finally, the preset layout options, okay? This is your preset display layout. That's what it's called, preset display layout. And what is a layout? Well, basically, this is one layout. This is what you see right here. This little grid here, panel layout, that's what you see. If I click here, I get 4 different layouts. I got my top view, got my front view, got my rear view, and I got my 3D perspective view. That's what mainly people call it, is the perspective view. P-E-R-S-P, perspective. That's what you see here. If I go into the top menu, you can see it says top, T-O-P. Okay? Over here on the right, this big gray area here, this is your attribute editor and your channel box editor. Right now, it's nothing. There's nothing there. There's nothing to do. But once I create something, let's create this cube here. I just click here. Bam, I got all this information here that I could use. All this conglomerate of information that I could use here. The channel box is also very important too. This is probably the first thing you're going to be learning. Our very first lesson is going to be learning how to use the channel box because it is very important what to do in translates and rotates and scales. And then on the bottom here, this is our time slider. When you want to animate something, you animate in frames. 24 frames equals 1 second in the real world. When film is created, film basically is just a series, a series of photos that are laid out in front of you in a certain order. 1 second would usually consist of 24 photos exposing to your eye to see. And that's how you get moving pictures. Right underneath that is your range slider. Basically, I can increase the range. Right now, I'm going from 1 frame to frame 24. But as I increase this, as you can see, now I got 48 frames, which is commonly known as, 2 seconds of frame per second. Here is, again, this is the maximum here, and this is the minimum, 1 frame, 48, 48. And then you have your playback controls. If I hit play, as you can see, it's now playing. If there was something moving here, you would see it moving. Right now I got nothing animated. I can click stop, I can go backwards, I can go forwards, I can rewind to the very first tab, I can go to the very last tab, I go to the next keyframe and so forth. But it's there. And then finally, we have our script editor, which is the very bottom, the mail command and the Python command. What is really the script editor? Let's take a look at it in its whole. Basically, this is all the stuff that happens in the background, stuff that you don't need to see. Back in the day when, I would say the 80s, when Max Headroom was one of the very first known publicly, popular known virtual icons in the day, he was made up of code. And this would be a whole bunch of code that would create him. I just created this little box, and all this code is in the background to create this little box. Let me watch him create another one. And look, more code came out. Okay? And even if I, just go ahead and move it, more code. See that? So all this stuff happens in the background. This is stuff that makes it easier for us to animate, make more complex animations, movies, video games, models, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is basically your user interface. A lot of stuff is probably mumbo jumbo to you right now. That's why I said you're going to most likely be watching this video at least 3 or 4 times throughout the year when you're learning this stuff. Because right now you're kind of like, well, what's this mean? What's that mean? But once we get into this and you watch this video again, you will see that, oh, okay, now I know what the attribute editor is, and now I know what the preset layouts is, preset display layouts, excuse me. So I'll see you in the next video.